Excellent. This is the front-end orientation for VA.gov. I welcome all participants, and we're happy to have you on board. Let's start by doing a tradition of a quick introduction. We'll also just go over our agenda. We'll go over the infrastructure of VA.gov. I'll give you a quick overview of technical onboarding, including the platform, our workflow, and how it integrates with GitHub. A quick tour of relevant repositories you may be working with, depending on what your team is. We'll go into the process of deployment, and we'll also overview local setup, so you have like a clue to that. And I'll also touch on how to reach out for help. So let's start with a quick introduction, rather. My name is Ray Messina. I'm a front-end software engineer here at Ad Hoc, and I work on VA.gov platform. I live in Madison, Wisconsin. For those who don't know, that's Central Time, and it's the home for the famous 90s band Garbage. And this is not working the way I planned. But let's start going round robin and just give us your name, title, and location. I can't see who's in the meeting, so if one of you could just start.
I'll start. My name is Mateo. I'm a senior software developer with Mo Studio, so I'll be working on some login.gov adoption with the VA, and I live in Denver, Colorado, so I'm on Mountain Time.
Cool. Next person.
I could go next. Hi, everyone. My name is Fatma Khan. I'm a front-end developer working with GovCIO. I'm from California. That's PST time, so my work does start pretty early for me. Yep,
So
that's all for me.
So you make it a habit to start
around 5:30 a.m. Yeah, for me.
Ouch. Okay. Next person. I count there are two more people that should be able to say this.
I could go next. I'm Don. I'm in San Antonio, Texas. I'm a backend engineer. I work for Agile 6. I am working on CHAMP VA, which is civilian health and medical. I forgot what the P stands for, but it's mostly forms. Yes. Wemby's hometown now. San Antonio Spurs. Let's see what else. Yeah, that's it. I'll popcorn it to Michael.
Okay. Yeah. My name is Michael Clement. I'm a software engineer at Ad Hoc, a front-end, also a front-end engineer, I guess I should say. And my location is Clinton, Mississippi. So I'm in Central Time as well. And I'm working on Champ VA. And I believe I'll pass it to Kurt if he hasn't gone yet.
Thanks, Michael. My name's Kurt. I'm a full stack engineer on platform. Also coordinate the front end community of practice. I'm on the oddball side, and I am located just north of Orlando, Florida. And I'll pass it over to Harshal.
Hi everyone, my name is Harshal Muradia. I'm a software engineer at Ad Hoc, and I'm currently located in Bartlett, Illinois. Back to you, Ray.
Thank you, Herschel. The reason why I always like doing the whole introductions and going around is so that we all become aware that Fatima aside, we cover all time zones in the US. So normally, someone's start time is somebody else's lunch sometimes. And that's something to keep in mind when you are on Slack and reaching out to people, that time isn't synchronized necessarily. Just the point of courtesy and efficiency. So let's get started with the front-end infrastructure of VA.gov. For clarity, I'm breaking down this process into a few discrete areas, one being the static site builds, the next one being the applications, the continuous integration pipeline, henceforth being referred as simply CI, and finally deployments. So static site builds. VA.gov is a static site website. The content is drawn from a Drupal API, then handed off to Metalsmith, which is some old tech which just essentially generates the site. It runs a set of processes to output the website as a static site or static pages. It translates the directory tree into plain JavaScript objects that we can then manipulate with a little effort, and uses a selection of plugins to build the sites via Liquid.js templates. Metalsmith, as I mentioned, is the generator we use, and these steps for building the sites are outlined in the build index file, in the comments in the content build repository. Of course, the applications, moving on to that, applications that comprise VA are built using React and integrated via the aforementioned Metalsmith. The application source code lives in the vet's website repository. The only point of connection between vet's website and the application build and the content build is a registry JSON file located in the content build repository. This file tells the static sites in generation which pages to create for the listed application. Moving through, I'd like to quickly go over what that registry file looks like, so you guys can have just sort of like a little bit of an overview. Can you guys see the screenshot clearly? I'm not consider
Yes.
that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So, quick overview. In the registry file, you'll see that the register has your app name that's somewhat arbitrary. You have an entry name that's literally what your app is named on the repository. You have a root URL. The root URL is actually what you'll be able to locate your app in when you have VA.gov running. So for example, if you're running at local, you will have localhost 3001, I believe. And if you wanted to see the COVID screening app here, you would just see localhost 3001, COVID-19 screen. And then you should be able to see your COVID-19 screen app running. Another important property on this object is the VA.gov prod property, because if you have this set to false, true being default, if you have this set to false, your app will not be deployed to production. This can come in handy if you just want to have your app in the lower environments to be able to check them out. All right, moving on to CI. The CI process for Beth's website and content build are very similar and identical in fact, so for the sake of brevity, I'll be covering them both as if they were one and the same. They both run linting, security checks, end-to-end, and unit tests, as well as creating a full build to ensure that the code is free from errors. Review instances. At the end of the CI process, the environment builds are uploaded to the S3 bucket, so you can then inspect them and they can be, checked out before deployment. You can access the review instances on your PI by looking on right below the comments section. So the comments have been above over here, and you'll see a button that says view deployment. There should be something that also says, this plan was successfully deployed. You'll be able to click on that button. It'll show you something like this, which will be this essential copy, if you will, of VET's website. It's got these alphanumeric string in front of the path that says review VA.gov/internal. That will match specifically your deployment, and it will update each time you make a change or a new commit. About deployment cadence, VET's website and content build each observe their own deployment cadence. A regular deployment for VET's website occurs currently at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Similarly, content build does the daily production release at 3 p.m. Eastern time, with content only deployments occurring hourly. For sake of clarity, VET's website, if you recall, I mentioned that repository contains the applications. So changes to the applications occurred once a day, but changes to content, we have a release once a day, but that's essentially the code of the repository, but content itself releases once an hour. Deployment also, and this is an important part, deployment cadence is also determined by the VFS app itself. Specifically, if it's an app that's part of our allow list and has opted in to take part in continuous deploy. You can see if you're part of continuous deploy by checking in the change apps.json file. Apps which are in the continuous deploy and allow list meet a certain criteria, such as having no cross-app dependencies, and as such benefit from faster build sites, and can take part of the continuous deploy process I just elaborated on. Another friend of yours here would be the, let's mention this, sorry, front-end support dashboard. Point in fact, all of these links will be available to you at the end of the presentation, as well as the link to the deck, so you can check out these at your leisure. But going over the front-end support dashboard, it essentially gives you a quick overview of the deployment, of the status of your deployment as in being in the lower environments or production. Using this illustration to give examples of what you may see. Red X's, of course, indicated that the process has either failed or not completed. So if somebody had just, say, recently made a commit a few minutes prior, that top commit would be the first line, and it might seem like 3 red X's. It doesn't mean it failed. It could be that it's in process. If everything goes correct and is still before the aforementioned 3 p.m. Eastern time, you will see something that looks more like this, with 2 green check marks, and of course the red X in which we're waiting for it to go to the deployment. If it's been a while and you have red X's in your dev or staging, then you may want to attempt to rerun the job or seek out assistance. or check for errors, because it could be like a failure on some test or another. Another thing that I will point out is that continuous deployment apps that normally have, there's normally like a little lightning bolt icon on the corner over here of the commit column. You would once you commit, continuous deployment apps go straight to production. That's either the great advantage of continuous deployment or the great downfall, that you actually have no time to check out the lower environments. You are live when you commit. I would advise that those of you in BFS teams check with your team leads and project managers to make sure that you know whether you're in a team that partakes of continuous deployment. So let's do that technical onboarding now. Platform VA.gov runs on is composed of 3 major components. We touched on this earlier. Metalsmith, which is the static site generator that uses our Node.js and plugin architecture and takes advantage of Liquid JS templates. It makes it flexible and customizable to integrate other systems into it. Of course, we use React and Redux for our applications. I'm sure most of you people are familiar with that. React is just for building single-page apps. These apps are then hydrated into the static pages. Finally, content is kept in a Drupal CMS. This is retrieved via GraphQL and pushed into the Metalsmith pipeline via some custom plugins. This is then transformed into a static HTML page, again using Liquid.js templates. You may or may not run into mention of TeamSite. This is a content management system built using Perl. Is way from the very beginning of VA.gov, and I would consider it almost vestigial, just a remnant of our humble origins. The best way to get up to speed on this is to read the front-end developer documentation. Also, a link will be provided at the end of the presentation. About our workflow, VFS teams work together via GitHub, and we keep projects organized and track versions, perform deploys, all in this one platform. Pull requests. We rely on pull requests to enable collaborations and coordination. We would like to favor using draft PRs so the live pipeline can be kept clear and we can not try to run into each other, so to speak. So as a matter of good etiquette, it's also good to use draft PRs before making them live. This is because code owners are notified, and so if you put your PR up right away, you'll essentially be calling people to review your code way before it's ready. As I was just saying, PRs require both manual and automated approvals before they can be merged into main. Going into that, the code owners are the people whose relevant code has been affected by your changes. It's used to enforce both our automated and manual approvals. The automated approvals come mainly from steps in the CI and include automated tests like unit tests, linting, and end-to-end tests. Small changes, of course, are preferred. Just because somebody's going to be reviewing this, keep in mind, the better than they can focus on your code, the better the review will be. It's recommended that you use feature toggles. Feature toggles for large features and or refactors. Because we do deploy daily, it's recommended also that code on the main branch should always be production ready. That's website. This repo is where you will find the primary code of the React applications which run VA.gov. It is a Webpack. So Webpack-based system. I highly recommend going over the README in this repo as file references listed here. Sorry, as references a list of commands and common techniques for testing and seeing the site run. Content build. This repo houses all the static site generations for VA.gov. This site generator consumes data from the Drupal CMS and builds the static HTML pages through Metalsmith. Again, this repo also has a very useful README file with CLI commands and variables that you may find useful when testing and running your work. How are we doing on time? Okay, good. Viewing on deployments. Regular deployments occur at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Similarly, content build does the daily production release at 3 p.m. Eastern time, with content only deployments occurring hourly. Just so we are aware, staging and dev deployments occur simultaneously each time your branch is merged to main. So that may be a surprise to some people, but essentially when you merge your branch, it doesn't climb up the lower environments. Staging and dev are two separate environments, but are deployed simultaneously. Production, as I said earlier, depends on the status of your app. If it's on the allowed list, then if you've merged to main, you're live. If you're not, you have to wait till 3 p.m. for our daily deployment. This is essentially repeating what I just said. Your daily deployments at 3 p.m. Check if you're in the continuous deploy. A hint about continuous deploy is that, and this will also be covered slightly later in the presentation, but I do want to put a fine point on it, that we have what we call out-of-band deployments. Apps in the continuous deploy do not need to bother with out-of-band deployments. If something is wrong with your code, you can just go ahead and fix it and push the next deployment. So that segues perfectly into that. Out-of-band deployments. If there's a critical issue that needs to be resolved outside the automated deployment cadence, out-of-band deploys may be performed in accordance to our deployment policy, which I will just elaborate here. The first thing you need to do when performing an out-of-band deployment is open a support request and VFS platform support channel on Slack. Find the team who manages the relevant code needing the deployment. This is so that the team in support knows which type of group of people are working on this. Select off-cycle deployment for the nature of the request. Include a detailed summary, including the severity, the user impact, and if you can, the number of users you estimate to be affected. Platform support team will then trigger a PagerDuty alert to notify the relevant Toad platform people. The request will then be approved or denied by the Octo platform staff. If your request is approved, the support staff themselves will perform the out-of-band deploy. You're not off the hook yet. Within 2 business days of the incident, you are required to open a PR with a postmortem using this template, which you can find. I'll put the link up to that as well. And follow the steps outlined in the README. Once this is complete, you must announce the postmortem in the corresponding support thread. As I said earlier, apps in the allowed list that participate in continuous deploy are exempt from out-of-band deployment procedures and thus requirements. All right, moving on to getting set up locally. First thing you probably will need to do is set up a local node environment. It's important to note that our site currently runs not in the latest stable version of Node, but on 14.15.0. So you have that set up. You can clone repositories. You don't have to clone all of them. I just happen to do that just for the sake of inclusivity, but generally you can focus on, if you're a front end or an app developer in a BFS team, you can just have your stuff content build and maybe the API if you need it. Starting up the front end, you will essentially run Vet's website, which will be running on localhost 3001. And it should, when you first run it, look like this. This is not wrong. This is just what the vet site repo looks like, because it is essentially just the application. So if you were listening earlier, if you wanted to like see your specific application running, you can go to the registry file, find that URL, and put it at the end of the localhost 3001, and you'll see your application by itself. It will not have any content around it, but for all functional purposes, if you're just working your application, that should suffice. If you want to see the whole thing running, then you need to do content build. You'll follow these instructions, which is, build, run build, and then you can run watch for content build. And at this point on localhost 3002, you will now see what more closely resembles VA.gov. If you have to do with backends, you can also set those tools and any other internal setups that you may need. That's also covered in the developer docs. If you have any issue, you can just reach out to VSP platform support. That's a segue to platform support. So how do you ask for help? Well, anytime you need a hand, you can reach out to VFS platform support channel on Slack, which looks like this. We had just a slight change in UI. I don't know if you guys are privy to how it used to look now before, but now you are looking at the bottom for this little slash symbol, or you can type /support in the comment prompt to begin the process. After that, you will need to hit the send button, which will trigger this menu, and here's where you will choose the team that is relevant. In this case, I chose QA standards. Then you will choose a nature of the request. If you recall what I was mentioning with the out-of-band deploys, this would be like where that choice would be. But in this particular case, we were having to do with a testing tool. And in the summary of requests, you can go as verbose as possible. Remember, the better you describe your problem, the sooner they'll be able to help you. Finally, a conversation will be established, and the rest is just the back and forth of how it goes. Thank you, that's it. I'm going to pause the recording as soon as I find the button, and then I will field your questions.